Coming up on a newscast, South Korea's benchmark index dipped below 2,400 points for the first time in almost 2 years. This follows a plunge on Wall Street over recession fears. The launch date for Nuri is changed following a technical error. The South Korean rocket made using domestic technology will be launched next Tuesday. The European Commission recommended Ukraine for fast-track candidacy to become an EU member. Several countries expressed support, but some still have reservations. Hello, hope you're wrapping up the week well. I'm Daniel Che here to bring the latest. Let's begin with our top story. The KOSPI opened sharply lower, reaching levels not seen since 2020, but it did bounce back before closing. This comes as investors remain concerned over a possible recession in the U.S. Kim Hyun-sung starts us off.
Korea's benchmark index bounced back above 2,400 points soon after the open Friday morning, after touching its lowest point since late 2020. The KOSPI closed around 2,440 for a loss of about 10.5 points for the session. The slump followed the Federal Reserve's decision on Wednesday U.S. time to raise interest rates by 0.75%. This was the Fed's biggest rate hike since 1994. The combination of bold monetary tightening and the strong dollar has led foreign investors to sell Korean stocks. But one expert says the worst may be yet to come.
I think the U.S. economy and even our economy could fall into recession, and stocks could go down even 10% from where they are now. They could even fall into the 2,200s.
According to another expert, in order to keep the market and the currency from falling too low, the Bank of Korea has no choice but to raise rates along with the Fed.
If, the Bank of Korea does not raise it, then necessarily Korean currency will depreciate very much. And if Korean currency depreciates very much, it's going to trigger outflow of funds from Korea.
Market bellwether Samsung Electronics closed below 60,000 won a share, also its lowest point in 19 months. It closed on Friday at 59,800 won, down 1.8%. From a month earlier, it's off more than 12%. Samsung's been hit by supply bottlenecks and the global shortage of memory chips. Korea's other main index, the tech-heavy KOSDAQ, fell on Friday by the same percentage as the KOSPI, at 0.43%. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
The Finance Ministry believes the local economy could face some serious headwinds. For the first time this year, officials expressed concerns about a slowdown caused by soaring inflation and financial turmoil around the world. Ji-young helps us look beyond the digits.
Growing uncertainties from home and abroad pose threats to the South Korean economy. Numbers from the Finance Ministry's Economic Green Book on Friday show the local economy's recovery might be losing steam.
Amid the soaring inflation and the worsening economic situation abroad, there are concerns over economic slowdown. The country's recovery in exports and investment may weaken.
Export growth slowed as well. In May, average daily exports grew about 11% on year, while in April that figure grew by some 15% compared to a year before. April's balance of trade also saw a deficit of $80 million as import prices of commodities surged amid the war in Ukraine. Adding fuel to the fire, rising prices of commodities and energy led South Korea's consumer price index last month to rise at the fastest clip since the 2008 global financial crisis. The government drastically raised this year's inflation outlook to a 14-year high of 4.7% from its 2.2% estimate in December. Economic growth forecast was also slashed to 2.6% from an earlier projection of 3.1%. One expert says the growth depends on the global economic recovery.
If the slowdown becomes more global, then Korean slowdown will become worse. It entirely depends on what happens with Korean exports. It's the foreigners who buy Korean exports. So no matter what Koreans do, if the foreigners do not have the money to buy Korean goods, Korean exports will go down. So it really depends on the condition of the global economy.
But a silver lining came in the form of job numbers and the service sector. The Green Book pointed to improvements in employment data with around 28 million people being employed in May, a 3.4% increase from the same period last year. And thanks to the lifting of social distancing measures, the service sector showed signs of recovery as well. The government plans to implement new economic policies to stabilize consumer prices and overcome low economic growth. 엄지영, Arirang News.
The government will not adopt a wage differential system, which allows different minimum wage standards for various sectors. So next year, it will be the same for everyone. The exact amount, though, will be determined later. Yoon provides a glimpse of what to expect.
All industries in South Korea will continue to apply the same minimum wage for their workers next year. But the Korea Enterprises Federation is not happy about the decision. On Thursday, the Minimum Wage Commission voted to keep the current system. In response, the Federation said the decision is unrealistic and it didn't take into account the difficulties street-level businesses like convenience stores and restaurants have been facing. South Korea had actually adopted a differentiated minimum wage back in 1988, but it was never applied. Under it, certain low-margin businesses would be allowed to pay their workers less. However, labor groups have resisted the system, saying it doesn't protect the basic rights of society's most vulnerable, like young people and temporary workers. Thursday's decision is also a major blow to President Yoon, who had pledged to differentiate the minimum rate by industry. He had said that the minimum wage should be set lower for some industries and small businesses that are struggling to pay their employees for reasons beyond their control. The country's minimum wage currently stands at 9,161, or about $7.25 per hour. Back in 2018, the Moon Jae-in government had raised the minimum wage by 16.4%, which was the largest annual increase ever. 이지훈, Arirang News.
President Yoon held a phone with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. According to the top office, they discussed North's latest missile tests. The South Korean leader emphasized that the lack of strong collective action by the UNSC sends the wrong message to the regime. Pyongyang could believe the international community finds its nuclear and missile developments acceptable. Yoon also called for closer coordination in monitoring the concerning situation regarding COVID-19 in the reclusive state. The regime is yet to respond to offers from Seoul to help it deal with the virus. Seoul's defense chief held talks with a delegation from a U.S. foreign policy think tank to discuss security issues. While meeting with members of the American Foreign Policy Council, including former National Security Council official Ellison Hooker, Lee Jong-suk stressed North Korea's continued missile test is a threat to peace and stability, not only on the peninsula, but for the international community. According to the Defense Ministry, the delegation asked about Seoul's specific countermeasures against Pyongyang's nuclear and missile capabilities, as well as ways to enhance Washington's plans on extended deterrence. The Board of Audit and Inspection began probing the Coast Guard after it withdrew claims that a South Korean official shot and killed by the North Korean military in 2020 was trying to defect. That claim had been strongly denied by his family. After the man was shot on the northern side of the sea border, the Coast Guard said he appeared to be trying to defect because of his debts, but it now says there's no related evidence. Investigators will review if the Coast Guard and the Defense Ministry arrive at their initial conclusion in a legitimate manner. A new launch date is set for South Korea's homegrown space rocket. This comes after a technical error had prevented its historic second launch earlier this week. Nuri will take off on June 21st. Han Sung-woo explains further.
Next Tuesday, June 21st, is the new date the Ministry of Science and ICT and the Korea Aerospace Research Institute have set for Nuri's second launch.
At first, we thought Nuri's first and second stages would have to be separated to replace the problematic sensor itself. But researchers at the Korea Aerospace Research Institute, after close examination, found the issue could be solved by only replacing the sensor's key parts.
After a launch management committee meeting at the Naro Space Center in Gohung, Jeollanam-do Province, authorities announced on Friday that they've replaced the key parts of the oxidizer level sensor in the rocket's first stage and confirmed the sensor now works fine. Engineers first detected the problem on Wednesday, one day before the previous launch date at 2:05 in the afternoon, while Nuri was standing fully upright on its launch pad, which forced them to transport Nuri back to where it was assembled.
After trying to figure out the issue at the launch pad, we realized it was not possible to get up close and analyze the problem while it's standing up. That's why we decided it's impossible to carry out the launch pad at the moment.
The sensor's readings were supposed to change in value during the rocket's erection process, but reportedly remained static. Engineers said at the time if it was an issue with the electric cable or terminal box, fixing the problem wouldn't take too long. But they feared an issue with the sensor itself could push the new launch date way past June 23rd, the last day of Nuri's alternative launch window, possibly to autumn. Luckily for them, even though it was the sensor that was the problem, Nuri will lift off within the window. Officials have acknowledged, however, that weather conditions still remain a variable. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
The nation's industry minister will expand South Korea's nuclear power plant footprint during his first overseas business trip. Lee Chang-yang is visiting the Czech Republic and Poland from June 27th to early next month. The minister will meet key government figures in the industrial and energy sector to help Korea hydro and nuclear power win over plant deals in these countries. People infected with COVID-19 will still be required to self-isolate for 7 days here in the nation. The rule is staying in place for at least 4 more weeks. Some other measures, including those related to nursing homes, are relaxed. Song Yoo-jin brings the updates.
Mandatory quarantine for those who test positive for COVID will stay in place for 4 more weeks. This means those who catch COVID will still have to self-isolate for 7 days. The decision was made at a Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures headquarters meeting on Friday. Health authorities decided to keep the quarantine rules in place over fears of a possible virus resurgence.
Although South Korea has the medical capacity to contain the virus, the number of COVID-19 related deaths is still relatively high. So, we evaluated that relieving quarantine measures could trigger an early virus resurgence and cause more damage.
However, the government could lift or shorten the quarantine if they deem the country's virus situation as stable, with the situation to be reassessed every 4 weeks. However, there is some good news for those who have loved ones at care facilities and nursing homes.
Before, only those who have been fully vaccinated were allowed to make in-person visits, but now their visitors can come regardless of vaccination status. Also, care facility residents who have been gotten their 4th shots will be able to leave their residence.
With the safety of residents in mind, reservations for visits should still be made beforehand, and visitors will have to get a PCR or rapid antigen test. Meanwhile, South Korea saw 7,198 new COVID-19 infections on Thursday. That's down almost 800 from the day before and is the 8th straight day for the figure to stay below 10,000. There were 9 related deaths and there are 82 critically ill patients. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
After days of heated discussions, WTO ministers struck multiple deals. They agreed to lift export restrictions that impacted the UN World Food Program to stabilize food prices. They've also decided to ban subsidies that encourage overfishing. Officials plan to waive IP protection for COVID-19 vaccines so that developing countries can also actively produce and export their own. The WTO Ministerial Conference, which kicked off on June 12th, was set to end on Wednesday, but with many issues left unsettled, talks were extended for 2 more days. The European Commission recommended Ukraine for a fast-track candidacy to become an EU member. Several countries expressed support, but some still have reservations. The process normally takes years, so if Ukraine gets the nod, the nation would be gaining membership at a record pace. Yoon has the full story.
Ukraine may get what it wants, speedy registration to the European Union. The European Commission convened a meeting on Friday to back Ukraine's bid for a fast-tracked EU candidacy. This has never happened this quickly before. Usually, countries wanting EU membership have to take numerous steps, which can take more than a decade. The topic will resurface during discussions at next week's EU summit. All 27 member states must come to an agreement. Some countries like the Netherlands and Denmark aren't on board. They've said Ukraine doesn't fulfill the criteria that other EU member states have passed, such as the level of democracy and protection of human rights. But leaders of Germany, France, Romania, and Italy have publicly supported Ukraine's immediate candidacy. During a visit to Kyiv on Thursday, French President Emmanuel Macron said that Ukraine could count on the Brotherhood of Europe to make sure that Ukraine remains free.
We have jointly expressed our desire to confirm through action, beyond words, that Ukraine belongs to the European family.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky shared his appreciation.
Today is a truly historic day. Ukraine has felt the support of 4 powerful European states. They agree that the war's end and peace for Ukraine must be exactly as Ukraine sees them, as our people see them.
On the same day, Russia's top security officials said Ukraine's attempts to join the EU goes against Moscow's interests. Meanwhile, the eastern part of Ukraine is largely in ruins. After being pushed back from the outskirts of Kyiv in May, Russian troops have focused their artillery to the Donbas region. A top Ukrainian official says up to 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers are being killed or wounded each day in this region. Yoon, Arirang News.
BTS's new album sold over 2.75 million copies during the first week of release. While some expressed concerns over the group's plans to take a break as the boys' global success opened doors for other K-pop artists, some think the band's popularity will grow even stronger. Issue provides a deeper analysis.
K-pop sensations BTS have set yet another record with their latest album, Proof. According to the group's agency Big Hit Music on Friday, the album released on June 10th has sold over 2,750,000 copies. That's the largest sales during the first week of release of an album this year in South Korea. The album also topped the Japanese music chart Oricon's daily album rankings this week. From their jaw-dropping performance at the Grammy Awards to their visits to the United Nations and the White House, the group has helped K-pop reach a larger audience. They have also opened the door for other K-pop artists. On Thursday, Kang Daniel made his TV debut in the United States, performing his latest song Parade on NBC's The Kelly Clarkson Show. The backdrop to his performance was a view of the Hangang River, highlighting the beauty of Korea.
Because BTS have accomplished a lot in the United States, the public's awareness of K-pop has changed.
But BTS announced on Tuesday that they've decided to spend some time apart as a group. Instead, they'll focus on solo projects and pursue their own individual interests. Experts say that the decision will actually further amplify the group's presence around the globe.
Their influence can grow further. I think the members who previously couldn't collaborate with other artists due to the group's schedule will now be able to grow their presence through various collaborations.
And it will not in any way lessen the positive influence the group have on other K-pop artists and could actually lead to more collaborations with individual members of BTS. The expert added that through such collaborations, other K-pop artists will be able to come into the fore. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
A priceless relic that's seen as one of the finest examples of metalwork from the unified Chilla period is unveiled. With ultra-thin engraving and exquisite detail, the gold leaf artifact left experts speechless. Kim Bo-kyung shares with us the details.
Unbelievable. This can't be something that's man-made. The words of experts after seeing a gold leaf artifact unearthed from South Korea's Donggung Palace and Walji Pond in November 2016. Gyeongju National Research Institute of Cultural Heritage finally unveiled this sophisticated, outstanding gilt relic from the 8th century on Thursday. The artifact was initially discovered as two separate pieces, situated approximately 20 meters apart from one another. But after going through a conservation process, it was found to have been one single artifact. Bird and flower patterns are intricately engraved on the thinly spread out gold that measures 3.6 centimeters by 1.17 centimeters. The jaw-dropping patterns are carved at a thickness of 0.05 millimeters. That's finer than a human hair and even difficult to see with the naked eye. Experts all agree that this artifact displays the essence of 8th century unified Silla period metalwork.
Delicately having all the elements one would want with flawless technology, it is not an exaggeration to say this is a global-level craftwork.
Experts say gold leaf engraved with these patterns also reveals Western influences, but ones which have been transformed in Silla's own unique way.
We can see the outstanding craftsmanship of Silla artisans from that time, showing the pinnacle of metalwork technology and the culture of that time. I hope this artifact can trigger more research on Silla period metal craftwork.
This outstanding relic will be on display for the public at the Gyeongju National Research Institute of Cultural Heritage until October 31st through an exhibition titled The Blooming Flowers and Birds on 3cm Gold Leaf. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Part of the Donimun Museum Village, where one can explore a cluster of historic Korean buildings, has been transformed into a huge canvas displaying the latest digital artwork. Under the theme 100 Years of Seoul, the 11-meter-tall facade displays a variety of media art pieces from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. The exhibition will run for a year. First to be showcased, work by Lee Nam, who recreates the capital's landmarks through a mix of light, sound, and music. The project is part of a plan to make Seoul the digital culture city centered on digital media artwork.
Light showers are expected for parts of central regions tomorrow. For the Seoul metropolitan area and Gangwon-do province, 5 millimeters of rainfall will be coming and going. This round of rain is caused by the increase in daytime temperatures, which are creating more unstable air. Thunder and lightning may fall at times, so please be extra careful out on the roads. Weather conditions for Gyeongsangbuk-do province will be scorching hot this weekend. Chances are high that heat wave advisories will be in place for this entire weekend. As for the air quality, clean air will stick around nationwide. The air is circulating at a fairly fast rate and dust concentrations will stay lower than average for the next couple of days. Most regions will see morning lows in early 20s tomorrow. Seoul will be kicking off at 21 degrees Celsius. As for the daily highs, Daegu will get up to 32 degrees, Gyeongju 33, Daejeon and Gwangju will be reaching 31 degrees. Next week, a monsoonal rain front is forecast to approach Jeju Island. Southern parts of the country may see heavy spells of showers. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.